The rain battered the cracked pavement of Chicago's West Loop. Each drop a tiny explosion in the neon glow of bar signs. I stood frozen, my heart clawing at my ribs, as Ethan's silhouette emerged from the alley's shadows, taller, broader, but unmistakably him. The boy I'd loved at 17. 10 years later, his eyes still burned with that reckless fire, and I wasn't ready for the way they pinned me in place. You didn't think I'd find you, did you, Caleb? His voice was low, teasing, but laced with something sharp or hurt. Maybe. Or accusation. He stepped closer, rain dripping from his dark hair, and I swear the air between us crackled like it did back in high school, when we'd sneak kisses behind the bleachers, terrified and thrilled. But now, another man's hand rested on my shoulder, steady and warm, pulling me back to the present. This was Julian, my fiancé, his grip both anchor and warning. At 29, Julian was everything Ethan wasn't: polished, predictable, safe. His blonde hair was neatly trimmed, his suit tailored even in the downpour, and his calm blue eyes held no trace of the chaos Ethan dragged in like a storm. I'd built a life with Julian, one that made sense, one my parents could smile at during holiday dinners. But Ethan's return was a grenade lobbed into that fragile order, and I could feel the pin slipping. Ethan, I managed, my voice a cracked whisper. Why now? He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because you're getting married, Caleb, and I'm not here to congratulate you. 10 years ago, Ethan and I were inseparable. We were two kids in a small Illinois town, where being openly gay wasn't just brave, it was dangerous. We'd spend nights in his beat-up Chevy, dreaming of escape, our hands tangled under a blanket as we whispered about a future in the city. But dreams don't pay bills, and fear has a way of choking hope. My parents found out about us senior year, and their ultimatum was clear: cut Ethan off or lose everything college. Family. My future. I was 17, scared, and weak. So I chose the easy path. I broke Ethan's heart and mine, telling him I didn't love him anymore, watching his face crumple as I lied. I thought I'd buried that guilt in college, in law school, in Julian's steady love. Julian was a paralegal at my firm, the kind of man who remembered anniversaries and never raised his voice. When he proposed 6 months ago, I said yes, because it felt like the right script: marriage, stability, a life my parents could brag about at their country club. But Ethan's return shattered that script like glass. Now, in the alley, Julian's hand tightened on my shoulder. Who is this? Caleb. His voice was calm, but I knew him well enough to hear the edge. Ethan's gaze flicked to Julian, sizing him up. I'm the guy who loved him first, he said, and the words landed like a punch. Julian's jaw clenched, and I felt the weight of their stares, two worlds colliding in the rain. Ethan, don't, I said, but my voice shook. I wanted to scream at him to leave, to stop unraveling everything I'd built. But another part of Meth Part that still dreamed of that Chevy, of his laugh in the dark, wanted him to stay. He stepped closer, ignoring Julian. You think you can erase me, Caleb? You think a ring and a fancy life make you forget what we had? His voice dropped, almost a whisper. You're still the same scared kid who ran away. Julian pulled me back, his touch firm but not rough. Enough, he said, his eyes locked on Ethan. Caleb's with me now. Whatever you had, it's over. Ethan laughed, a bitter sound that cut through the rain. Is it? Caleb, tell me it's over. I opened my mouth, but no words came. The alley seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as Ethan's eyes searched mine for the truth I wasn't ready to face. Julian's hand was steady, but Ethan's presence was a wildfire, and I was caught between them, burning. The next morning, I sat in our apartment, staring at the coffee Julian had made before leaving for work. He'd been quiet, his usual warmth replaced by a careful distance. I couldn't blame him. Last night, after Ethan vanished into the rain, Julian had asked me point blank if I still loved him. I'd said yes, because it was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Ethan's return had stirred something I thought I'd buried, and now every choice felt like a betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the pier. 2 p.m. We need to talk. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the delete button. But I didn't delete it. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and headed out, telling myself it was just closure. Nothing more. The pier was crowded with tourists, the lake glittering under a rare sunny day. Ethan leaned against the railing, his leather jacket scuffed, his hair still a mess. He looked like he belonged here, raw and unpolished, while I felt like an imposter in my pressed shirt and slacks. You came, he said, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. I shouldn't have, I replied, but I stayed. He turned to face the water, his voice low. I didn't come back to ruin your life, Caleb. I came because I heard you were getting married, and I couldn't let you do it without knowing the truth. What truth? My pulse quickened. He pulled a folded letter from his pocket, the edges worn. This is from you. The one you wrote before you left me. I froze. I'd written that letter the night I broke things off, pouring out everything I couldn't say aloud, how I loved him, how I was sorry, how I was too weak to fight for us. I thought he'd never read it. I thought he'd burned it. I kept it, he said, his voice cracking. Every time I wanted to hate you, I read it, and I knew you didn't mean what you said when you left. Tears stung my eyes. Ethan, that was 10 years ago. I'm not that kid anymore. Maybe not, he said, stepping closer. But you're still lying to yourself. You're marrying a guy you don't love, not the way you loved me. His words hit like a blade, sharp and precise. I wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong. But the weight of that letter in his hand felt like evidence I couldn't refute. The pier, the lake, the crowd had all faded, leaving just us, two boys who'd once promised each other forever. I stood on the pier, the letter trembling in Ethan's hand, its worn edges a testament to the years he'd carried my words. The Chicago wind whipped around us, sharp and cold, but it was his gaze that pinned me in place, demanding answers I wasn't ready to give. You can't just show up and rewrite my life, I said, my voice barely steady. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. I'm not rewriting anything, Caleb. I'm reminding you who you are. He held out the letter, and I took it, my fingers brushing his. The touch sent a jolt through me, a memory of late-night drives and stolen kisses, and I hated how alive it made me feel. I shoved the letter into my pocket, unopened. I have a life now, Ethan. A good one. Julian loves me. Does he? Ethan's voice was soft, but it cut deep. Does he know you like I do? Does he know the way you hum Springsteen when you're nervous? Or how you hate thunderstorms because of that night we got stuck in the rain? I flinched. He remembered too much. Saw too much. Stop, I said, turning away. But he grabbed my wrist, gentle but firm. Caleb, look at me. His voice was raw, pleading. You're about to marry a guy who doesn't even know you're scared of the dark. I yanked my hand free, my chest tight. You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up after 10 years and act like you own me. I don't want to own you, he said, his eyes searching mine. I just want you to be honest. With him. With yourself. I walked away, the letter burning a hole in my pocket, his words echoing in my head. I didn't look back, but I felt his gaze on me, heavy as the lake stretching out to the horizon. Back at the apartment, Julian was waiting. He sat on the couch, his tie loosened, a glass of wine in his hand. The air felt thick, like the calm before a storm. "Where were you?" he asked, his tone even but his eyes sharp. "I needed air," I said, avoiding his gaze. The lie tasted bitter, but the truth was worse. He set the glass down. "Standing. You saw him, didn't you, Ethan?" I froze, the letter in my pocket suddenly heavier. "It's not what you think," I said, but the words sounded hollow even to me. Julian crossed the room, his expression unreadable. "Caleb, I'm not an idiot. I saw the way you looked at him last night. Like he was the only person in that alley." "That's not true," I protested, but my voice cracked. Julian's calm was unraveling, and I hated that I was the cause. "Then tell me," he said, stepping closer. "Tell me you don't still love him." I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. The silence stretched, damning me more than any confession could. Julian's face softened, not with forgiveness, but with something worse, resignation. "I thought so," he whispered, turning away. "Julian, wait," I reached for him, but he shook his head, grabbing his coat. "I need to think," he said, and then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. I sank onto the couch, the letter in my pocket a weight I couldn't ignore. I pulled it out, my hands shaking as I unfolded it. My own handwriting stared back at me, the words of a terrified 17-year-old spilling across the page. "I love you, Ethan. I'm sorry. I'm not strong enough." Tears blurred the ink. I'd written it in a panic, thinking it would ease the guilt of leaving him. I hadn't known he'd kept it, carried it like a relic of our broken promises. Now, it was evidence of everything I'd tried to bury. The next day, I called in sick to work and wandered the city, the letter still in my pocket. Chicago's streets were a maze of memories, Ethan and I sneaking into dive bars, laughing until we couldn't breathe, planning a life we never got to live. I ended up at Millennium Park, staring at the bean's warped reflection of the skyline. My own face looked back, distorted, unrecognizable. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. "Meet me at the old diner. 7 p.m. Please." The diner was our place, a greasy spoon where we'd shared milkshakes and dreams. I should have ignored it, but my feet were already moving. The diner hadn't changed, same chipped Formica tables, same jukebox crooning Springsteen. Ethan sat in our old booth, his leather jacket slung over the seat. He looked up as I approached, and for a moment, I saw the boy I'd loved, not the man who'd come to upend my life. "You kept the letter," I said, sliding into the booth. He nodded. "It was all I had left of you." I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling in my chest. "Why now, Ethan? Why not 5 years ago? Or 2? He leaned forward, his voice low. "I tried to move on. I did. But when I heard you were getting married, I couldn't let you do it without knowing you had a choice." "A choice?" I laughed, bitter. "I made my choice 10 years ago. I chose to survive." "And you're still running," he said, his eyes steady. "You're marrying a guy you don't love because it's safe. But safe isn't happy, Caleb." His words were a mirror, reflecting truths I'd avoided for years. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the memory of Julian's resigned face stopped me. I wasn't happy, not the way I'd been with Ethan. Reckless and alive. The jukebox switched to Thunder Road, and Ethan's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. Our song, he said softly. I closed my eyes, the music pulling me back to those nights in his Chevy, when the world felt infinite. When I opened them, Ethan was watching me, his hand inches from mine on the table. Tell me you don't feel it, he said. Tell me you don't still love me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The diner, the music, his voice, it was all too much, and I was drowning in it. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting Ethan's face in sharp relief, every line, every scar, a map of the years we'd lost. His hand still hovered near mine, close enough to feel the warmth. But I didn't move. If I touched him, I'd break, and I wasn't sure I could put myself back together. Caleb, he said, his voice softer now. I'm not asking you to throw everything away. I just need to know if there's still a chance. I looked away, the jukebox's melody twisting the knife in my chest. You don't know what you're asking, I said. I've built a life. Julian's good to me. He's steady. Ethan's laugh was sharp, almost cruel. Steady. That's what you're settling for. The Caleb I knew wanted more than steady. He wanted to burn. His words stung because they were true. I'd spent 10 years dimming myself, fitting into a life that felt like someone else's. But burning with Ethan had cost me everything. Once me family, my future. I couldn't afford to lose again. I can't do this, I said, standing. I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't. He grabbed my wrist, his grip firm but not forceful. Don't run again, he said, his eyes pleading. Not without giving us a chance to figure this out. I pulled free, my heart pounding. There's nothing to figure out, I lied, and walked out, the diner's bell jingling behind me. The city was a blur as I walked, the cold biting through my jacket. I didn't go home. I couldn't face Julian, not with Ethan's words ringing in my ears. Instead, I ended up at a bar, some dive in Wicker Park where the whiskey was cheap and the music loud. I drank until the edges of my guilt softened, until Ethan's face and Julian's resigned stare blurred into one. My phone buzzed. Julian, where are you? We need to talk. I ignored it, ordering another drink. But the next buzz wasn't a text. It was a call, and Ethan's name lit up the screen. I answered before I could stop myself. What do you want? Ethan. Where are you? His voice was urgent. No trace of the teasing lilt from before. I'm coming to you. I laughed, the whiskey making me bold. Why? So you can ruin my life again. There was a pause. Then his voice, low and steady. You're not ruined, Caleb. You're lost. And I'm not giving up on you. He found me an hour later, sitting at the bar with an empty glass. He didn't say anything, just slid onto the stool next to me and ordered a beer. His presence was a weight, grounding and suffocating at once. Why can't you let me go? I asked, my voice slurring slightly. Because I love you, he said simply. And I know you love me too. I turned to him, his face too close, his eyes too honest. You're wrong, I said, but the words felt like ash in my mouth. Then prove it, he said, leaning closer. Kiss me, and if you feel nothing, I'll walk away. For good. My breath caught. The bar faded, the noise dimming to a dull roar. His lips were inches from mine, and every part of me screamed to close the distance, to taste the past I tried to forget. But Julian's face flashed in my mind, and I pulled back, my hand shaking. I can't, I whispered. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes dimmed. Okay, he said, standing. I'll go. But I'm not the one you're lying to, Caleb. He left, and I sat there, the whiskey sour in my stomach. I wanted to chase him, to beg him to stay. But my feet stayed rooted, paralyzed by the life I'd chosen. The next morning, I woke on the couch, my head pounding. Julian was in the kitchen, making coffee, his movements deliberate. He didn't look at me as he set a mug in front of me. "We need to talk," he said, his voice calm but firm. I nodded, the weight of last night pressing down on me. "I know." He sat across from me, his hands folded. "I love you, Caleb, but I can't compete with a ghost. If you're not all in, I need to know now." His words were a mirror, reflecting the same truth Ethan had thrown at me. I wasn't all in not with Julian, not with the life I'd built, but admitting that meant tearing everything apart. And I wasn't sure I was strong enough. "I don't know what I feel," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan's my past. You're my future. But I'm stuck, Julian." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Then figure it out," he said, "because I won't wait forever." He left for work, and I sat there, the coffee growing cold. The letter was still in my pocket, a constant reminder of the boy I'd been and the man I was trying to be. I pulled it out, rereading the words I'd written a decade ago. I'm not strong enough. Maybe I still wasn't. That afternoon, I went to Ethan's hotel, a rundown place near the Loop. I didn't know what I was doing, only that I couldn't keep running from the truth. He opened the door, his hair damp from a shower, his expression guarded. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "Neither did I admitted, stepping inside. The room was small, cluttered with sketches and notebooks, Ethan's art, his passion since we were kids. I picked up a drawing, a charcoal sketch of two boys holding hands under a streetlight. It was us, unmistakably. "You kept drawing me," I said, my voice thick. "Always," he said, stepping closer. "You're in every line, every shadow." I set the sketch down, my hands trembling. "I don't know how to do this, Ethan. I don't know how to choose." He reached for me, his hand cupping my face. "Then don't choose," he said. "Just feel." And then he kissed me, and the world fell away. Ethan's kiss was a wildfire, consuming every doubt, every fear, until there was nothing left but us. His hands framed my face, familiar and desperate, pulling me back to a time when love was simple, when it was just us against the world. I kissed him back, my fingers tangling in his hair. And for a moment, I was 17 again, fearless and whole. But then reality crashed in Julian's face. His quiet trust, the ring on my nightstand. I pulled back, breathless, my heart a battlefield. "Ethan, we can't," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm engaged." He didn't let go, his forehead resting against mine. "You don't love him," he whispered. "Not like this." I stepped back, the space between us a chasm. "You don't get to decide that," I said, but the words lacked conviction. His kiss had unraveled me, exposing the truth I'd buried. I was still in love with him, and it terrified me. "Caleb," he said, his voice raw, "I've spent 10 years trying to forget you. I can't, and I don't think you can either." I turned away, my hands shaking as I gripped the edge of his desk. His sketches were scattered there, fragments of our past captured in charcoal and ink. One caught my eye, a drawing of me laughing, my head thrown back, the Chicago skyline behind me. It was from our last summer together, before everything fell apart. "You kept all of this," I said, my voice barely audible. "You were my muse," he said, stepping closer. "You still are." I wanted to stay, to fall back into his arms and let the world sort itself out. But Julian's face kept flashing in my mind. His steady love a contrast to Ethan's chaos. I grabbed my jacket and left without another word, the door slamming behind me. The city was relentless, its noise drowning out my thoughts as I walked aimlessly. I ended up at Lake Michigan, the water gray and restless under a cloudy sky. My phone buzzed. Julian again. Dinner tonight. We need to talk. I stared at the message, guilt twisting in my gut. I'd kissed Ethan, betrayed Julian, and yet I couldn't regret it. Not entirely. I texted back, okay. 7 p.m. I needed to face him, to be honest, even if it broke us. At home, I found Julian cooking, the kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and rosemary. He looked up, his smile tentative, and I felt like the worst kind of traitor. We ate in near silence, the clink of forks deafening in the tension. Finally, he set his fork down. Caleb, I need to know where we stand. I can't keep pretending everything's fine. I swallowed, my throat tight. I saw Ethan again, I admitted, and I kissed him. Julian's face didn't change, but his eyes darkened, a storm brewing behind his calm. Do you love him? He asked, his voice steady but brittle. I don't know, I said, and it was the truth. I love you, Julian, but Ethan's part of me. I can't explain it. He nodded, his jaw tight. You need to figure it out, Caleb, because I won't share you. He stood, clearing his plate, and I felt the distance between us widen. I'm staying at a friend's tonight, he said. Take the time you need, but don't expect me to wait forever. The door closed softly behind him, and I was alone, the weight of my choices crushing me. I pulled out Ethan's letter again, rereading my own words. I'm not strong enough. I wasn't then, and I wasn't sure I was now. The next day, I avoided both Ethan and Julian, burying myself in work. But my mind kept drifting to that kiss, to the way Ethan's hands had felt, to the hurt in Julian's eyes. I was tearing myself apart, caught between two loves, two lives. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted Ethan, meet me at the park. 8 p.m. Millennium Park was quiet, the beam reflecting the city lights like a warped mirror. Ethan was already there, leaning against a bench, his leather jacket scuffed and familiar. He didn't smile when he saw me, just watched, waiting. I can't keep doing this, I said, my voice shaking. You're tearing me apart. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. I'm not trying to hurt you, Caleb. I just want you to be happy. And I don't think you are. I was, I said, but the words felt like a lie. With Julian, I was content. Content isn't enough, he said, his voice fierce. You deserve more than that. You deserve to feel alive. His words hit like a wave, pulling me under. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the memory of his kiss burned in me. Undeniable. What if I choose you and it falls apart again? I asked. What if we're not the same people anymore? Then we figure it out, he said, his hand brushing mine. But we do it together. I closed my eyes, the city humming around us. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine a life with Ethan, not the fantasy of our teenage dreams, but something real, messy, terrifying. And it felt like coming home. The park's lights flickered, casting Ethan's face in a soft glow as he stood waiting for my answer. His hand brushed mine, a tentative touch that held a decade of longing. And I felt the pull of him, stronger than ever. But Julian's words echoed to his quiet demand for honesty, his love that had never wavered until now. I need time, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't just choose. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he nodded. I'll wait, he said. But not forever. Caleb, I've done that already. He walked away, his silhouette blending into the city's glow. And I stood there, the weight of his words settling into my bones. I wanted to chase him, to promise him everything. But Julian deserved better than a half-hearted choice. I owed him the truth, whatever it was. Back at the apartment, I found a note from Julian on the counter, staying at Mark's for a few days. Call me when you're ready. The emptiness of the space mirrored the hollow ache in my chest. I sank onto the couch, Ethan's letter still in my pocket, its words a haunting refrain. I didn't read it again, I didn't need to. I knew every line by heart. The next few days were a blur of work and sleepless nights. I avoided Ethan's texts, ignored Julian's calls, and tried to drown myself in case files. But the truth kept surfacing, sharp and insistent. I loved Julian for his stability, his kindness, the life we'd built. But Ethan was my past, my fire, the part of me I'd locked away. Choosing one meant losing the other, and the thought was unbearable. On the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Julian, my hands shaking as the phone rang. Can we meet? I asked when he answered, his voice guarded but warm. We met at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, the kind of place with exposed brick and overpriced lattes. Julian looked tired, his blonde hair slightly mussed, his eyes wary. Have you figured it out? He asked, cutting straight to the point. I took a deep breath. I love you, Julian. You've been my rock. But Ethan's part of me I can't ignore. I kissed him, and it felt like I was alive again. Julian's face didn't change, but his hands tightened around his coffee mug. So what are you saying? I'm saying I don't know, I admitted, tears stinging my eyes. I don't want to hurt you, but I'm not sure I can be the man you deserve. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. I've always known you were holding something back, he said quietly. I thought I could love you enough to fill that space. But I can't compete with him. Can I? You're not competing, I said, desperate. It's not about better or worse. It's about me figuring out who I am. He nodded, his eyes softening. Then do that, Caleb. But I can't be your safety net while you do. He stood, leaving his coffee untouched, and walked out. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. The truth was, I didn't know who I was without Ethan's chaos or Julian's calm. And that scared me more than anything. That night, I went to Ethan's hotel again. He opened the door, his expression guarded but hopeful. You're here, he said, stepping aside to let me in. I told Julian about the kiss, I said, my voice shaking. He's gone for now. I needed to see you. Ethan's eyes searched mine, cautious. What does that mean? It means I'm terrified, I said, stepping closer. I'm terrified of losing you, of losing him, of losing myself. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I kissed him, and this time, I didn't pull back. His arms wrapped around me, tight and sure. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. But even as I melted into him, guilt gnawed at me. Julian's face, his quiet pain, lingered like a shadow. We spent the night talking, tangled in each other's arms, revisiting the past and imagining a future. Ethan told me about his life after I left art school. Odd jobs, a string of relationships that never lasted because none of them were me. I told him about law school, about Julian, about the life I'd built to prove I was more than the scared kid who ran away. We can't go back, I said, my head on his chest. But maybe we can start over. He kissed my forehead, his voice soft. I'll take whatever you give me. Caleb, just don't run again. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Ethan sketching, his pencil scratching against paper. He smiled when he saw me awake, holding up a drawing of me sleeping, my face soft in the morning light. You're still my muse, he said, and I laughed. The sound foreign but welcome. But reality crept in with the sunlight. I had to face Julian. To make a choice that would break someone's heart, maybe mine most of all. I left Ethan's hotel with a promise to call. My mind a storm of love and fear. At work, I was distracted, my colleagues noticing my scattered focus. During lunch, I stepped outside and called Julian, my heart pounding. Can we talk tonight? I asked. He agreed, his voice neutral. We met at our apartment, the space feeling both familiar and foreign. Julian sat on the couch, his hands clasped, waiting for me to speak. I love you, I started, my voice trembling. But I'm in love with Ethan. I've always been, even when I tried not to be. Julian's face crumpled, just for a moment, before he regained his composure. I knew, he said quietly. I just hoped I was wrong. I'm so sorry, I said, tears falling. You deserve better than this. He stood, his eyes wet but steady. I hope you find what you're looking for, Caleb. But I can't be part of it anymore. He left, and the apartment felt like a tomb, echoing with the life we'd almost had. The apartment was too quiet without Julian, the silence a constant reminder of the choice I'd made. I packed his things carefully, his books, his favorite mug, the tie he wore to our first date, and left them by the door for him to pick up. Each item felt like a goodbye, a piece of the life I'd thought I wanted slipping away. But Ethan's presence in my heart was undeniable, a flame that had never gone out. I met Ethan that evening at the diner, our old booth waiting like a time capsule. He slid in across from me, his eyes searching mine. You okay? He asked, his voice gentle. No, I admitted, tracing the edge of the table. I ended things with Julian. It's done. His hand found mine, warm and steady. I'm sorry, he said, and I believed him. I know what he meant to you. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. He was good to me, better than I deserved. Ethan squeezed my hand. You deserve to be happy, Caleb, not just safe. We talked for hours, the diner's jukebox playing softly in the background. He told me about his art, his dreams of opening a gallery, his years of wandering to fill the void I'd left. I told him about my fears, my guilt, the weight of choosing him over a life that had felt so certain. Let's take it slow, he said, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. We don't have to figure it all out tonight. I smiled. The first real one in days. Slow sounds good. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and I rebuilt what we'd lost, piece by careful piece. We went on dates, simple things like walks along the lake, coffee in quiet cafes, late-night talks in his hotel room. It wasn't the reckless love of our teenage years. It was deeper, tempered by time and loss. But the spark was still there, electric and alive. And I felt myself waking up, becoming the man I'd forgotten how to be. But Julian's absence lingered. I saw him once, at a coffee shop, his arm around a new guy, his smile brighter than I'd seen in months. It hurt, but it also felt right. Deserved to move on, to find someone who could love him fully. I sent him a text later, a simple "I'm happy for you." He didn't reply, and I didn't expect him to. Ethan moved out of the hotel and into a small apartment in Logan Square, a place filled with light and his sketches. I helped him unpack, laughing as we argued over where to hang a painting of the Chicago skyline. It felt domestic, real. Like the future we dreamed of as kids was finally taking shape. One night, as we lay in his bed, the city humming outside, he turned to me, his eyes serious. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "About us?" I traced the scar on his jaw, a reminder of the years we'd spent apart. "I'm sure," I said. "I've never been more sure." He kissed me, slow and deep, and I felt the last of my doubts melt away. This was where I belonged, in the chaos and beauty of us. But life isn't a fairy tale, and love doesn't erase the past. A month later, I got a call from my mother, her voice tight with disapproval. "I heard you broke off your engagement," she said, "and you're with him again." I hadn't spoken to my parents in years, not since they'd given me that ultimatum at 17. But her words still cut, a reminder of the family I'd lost to be myself. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "I'm with Ethan, and I'm happy." She hung up without another word, and I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand. Ethan found me on the couch, his arms wrapping around me without a word. "They'll come around," he said, but we both knew it wasn't likely. "It doesn't matter," I said, leaning into him. "You're my family now." He held me tight, his breath warm against my neck, and I knew I'd made the right choice, even if it hurt. As spring turned to summer, Ethan's art started gaining attention. A local gallery offered him a show, and I watched him pour himself into it, his sketches coming to life on canvas. The night of the opening, I stood by his side, proud and a little overwhelmed. His work was raw, honest, filled with the pain and beauty of our story. One painting stopped me cold, a portrait of me, standing in the rain, my eyes full of longing. The title card read, "Too late to cry now." I turned to Ethan, my throat tight. "You painted this," I said, not a question. He nodded, his hand slipping into mine. "It's us," he said. "Every moment, every choice." I kissed him there, in front of the crowd, unashamed and unafraid. For the first time, I felt free. The gallery buzzed with voices, the clink of wine glasses mingling with soft jazz. But all I could see was Ethan's painting, my own face staring back at me, raw and exposed. His hand in mine grounded me, a reminder that this moment, our moment, was real. I'd chosen him, chosen us. And though the cost was heavy, the freedom was worth it. As the night wound down, Ethan pulled me aside, his eyes bright with nervous energy. "I have something for you," he said, leading me to a quiet corner of the gallery. He handed me a small sketchbook, its pages worn and familiar. "Open it." I flipped through it, my breath catching. Every page was moments from our past, our present, our imagined future. The last page was a sketch of two men standing on a rooftop, the Chicago skyline behind them, their hands intertwined. Below it, in Ethan's messy scrawl, were the words, "For Caleb, my forever." Tears blurred my vision. "Ethan," I whispered, "this is everything." He smiled, brushing a tear from my cheek. "You're everything," he said. "I want to build a life with you, Caleb. Not just dreams this time, something real." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. For the first time, I believed we could do it, build a life. Messy and imperfect, but ours. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Ethan's gallery show led to more opportunities, and soon he was selling pieces across the city. I threw myself into my work too, taking on pro bono cases for queer youth, helping kids like the ones we'd been, scared and alone. It felt like atonement, a way to heal the wounds of my past. But the past wasn't done with us. One evening, as we walked home from dinner, a man stepped out of the shadows, his face familiar and unwelcome. It was my father, older now, his hair gray, his eyes cold. "Caleb," he said, his voice clipped. "We need to talk." Ethan's hand tightened on mine. Protective. "He doesn't owe you anything," he said, his tone sharp. My father ignored him. His gaze locked on me. "Your mother told me about this." He gestured at Ethan, disgust in his eyes. "You're throwing your life away for him." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I'm not throwing anything away," I said. "I'm living my life. The one I should have fought for years ago." His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. "You're making a mistake," he said, turning away. "Don't expect us to be there when it falls apart." As he walked away, Ethan pulled me close, his arms a shield against the pain. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I will be." We moved in together that fall. A small apartment in Andersonville filled with Ethan's art and my law books. It was chaotic, cluttered, perfect. We fought sometimes over money, over schedules, over whose turn it was to do the dishes, but every fight ended with us tangled together, laughing or kissing or both. One night, as we lay in bed, Ethan turned to me, his eyes serious. "I want to marry you," he said. "Not now. Not yet. But someday. Is that something you want?" My heart swelled, the fear of the past fading in the warmth of his gaze. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Someday." He kissed me, and I felt the promise of it. A future we'd build together, brick by brick. But life has a way of testing promises. A year after Ethan's gallery show, I got a call from Julian. His voice was strained, urgent. "Caleb, I need your help. It's legal trouble." I met him at a cafe, my stomach churning. He looked different, thinner, his eyes shadowed. He explained his new partner, Sam, was facing deportation, a visa issue tangled in bureaucracy. "You're the best lawyer I know," Julian said. "Can you help?" I hesitated, the weight of our history heavy between us. But I nodded. "I'll do what I can." Working on Sam's case brought Julian back into my life, a reminder of the man I'd loved and hurt. We kept it professional, but there were moments his hand brushing mine over a file, a shared laugh over coffee that stirred old feelings. I didn't love him, not anymore, but the guilt was still there, sharp and persistent. Ethan noticed. "Of course. You're different when you're around him," he said one night, his voice tight. "Like you're carrying something you won't let me see." "It's just guilt," I said, reaching for him. I heard him. "Ethan, I owe him this." He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. "Just make sure that's all it is," he said. I promised him it was. But as I worked late nights on Sam's case, doubt crept in. Was I helping Julian out of duty? Or was I trying to prove something to him? To myself? The lines were blurring, and I was terrified of losing Ethan again. The case consumed me. Late nights poring over immigration law. My desk littered with coffee cups and legal pads. Julian was grateful, his quiet professionalism a stark contrast to the warmth we'd once shared. But every meeting with him felt like walking a tightrope, balancing duty to him and loyalty to Ethan. I told myself it was just a job, but Ethan's words lingered. "Make sure that's all it is." One evening, Julian stopped by my office, his face drawn. "We got a hearing date," he said, handing me a file. 2 weeks. Sam's terrified. "We'll be ready," I said, forcing confidence I didn't fully feel. His hand lingered on the file, his eyes meeting mine. "Thank you, Caleb," he said softly. "I know this isn't easy for you." I nodded, my throat tight. I want you to be happy. Julian. You and Sam. He smiled, a flicker of the old warmth, and left. I sat there, staring at the file, my mind a tangle of guilt and relief. I was helping him, but I was also closing a chapter, letting go of the man I'd almost married. Ethan was waiting when I got home, his sketchbook open on the couch, a half-finished drawing of the lakefront. He looked up, his eyes guarded. Late night again, he said. Not quite a question. Julian dropped off some documents. I said, setting my bag down. The hearing's in 2 weeks. He nodded, his pencil tapping against the page. You're doing a lot for him. He needs help, I said, sitting beside him. It's not about us. Not anymore. Ethan set the sketchbook aside, turning to face me. I trust you, Caleb, but I see the way you get when you talk about him, like you're carrying his pain. I took his hand, my heart aching. I'm not in love with him, I said. I love you. I chose you. He searched my face, then pulled me into his arms, his kiss fierce and grounding. I know, he whispered. I just don't want to lose you again. You won't, I promised, and I meant it. The hearing was a blur of arguments and paperwork, but we won. Sam's visa was extended, a temporary reprieve, and Julian's relief was palpable. He hugged me outside the courtroom, a quick, grateful embrace. You saved us, he said. I'm glad, I replied, stepping back. Take care, Julian. He nodded, his eyes holding mine for a moment before he turned to Sam, their hands intertwining. I watched them walk away, a weight lifting from my chest. I'd done right by him, and now I could let go. That night, I told Ethan everything: Julian's case, the guilt I'd carried, the closure I'd found. He listened, his hand steady in mine, and when I finished, he kissed me softly. You're a good man, Caleb, he said, and I'm lucky you're mine. A year later, Ethan and I stood on a rooftop overlooking Chicago, the city sparkling below us. It was our anniversary, not of our teenage love, but of the day we'd chosen each other again. He'd planned the evening, complete with fairy lights and a playlist of our old songs, Springsteen's voice drifting through the air. He turned to me, his eyes nervous but bright, and pulled a small box from his pocket. I told you someday, he said, opening it to reveal a simple silver band. Caleb, will you marry me? Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring on my finger, his hands trembling, and pulled me close, his lips brushing mine as he whispered, Too late to cry now, isn't it? I laughed through my tears, holding him tight. Yeah, I said. Way too late. The city stretched out before us, a canvas of light and possibility. We'd lost so much family, time, pieces of ourselves, but we'd found each other again. And that was enough. More than enough. As we stood there, wrapped in each other, I thought of Julian, of my parents, of the boy I'd been, scared and running. I wasn't that boy anymore. I was a man who'd chosen love, who'd fought for it, who'd learned that happiness wasn't about safety, but about truth. Ethan's hand found mine, his ring catching the light, and I knew this was where I belonged. Not in the past, not in someone else's story, but here, now, with him. We'd build a life together, not perfect, but ours full of art, love, and the courage to keep choosing each other, no matter what came next.